Over a year ago, I set out on a custom wheel project for the Ferrari. I wanted to build something that no one else has, and chances are that no one else has ever seen. So I bought a set of old JDM wheels, I sent them out to be cut apart, and then resized to 17 by 10.5 and 17 by 12. And the outcome? They're here, and they look amazing. I'm excited to show you guys, but then I'm disappointed to show you why I'm out thousands of dollars, and I've got wheels that I can't even use.
But first, I want to talk about wheels in general. I am a firm believer that for any build, wheels can be make or break. I think they're unquestionably the most important part of any car's visual theme, and I think that wheels create the most important part of a first impression every time. When I'm choosing wheels, of course style is important, but equally so is era. Whether it's the 90s HREs on my 93 E36, or the 80s Renault center locks that were on my 82 Group A E28 Tribute, it becomes the wheels that define the character of the car. And of course, that can be taken to extremes. Let's use the example of a hot rod. The Le Mans wheels fitted to my 31 Model A give it a completely different look than the 4-inch wide BBS RSs fitted to my 28 Model A over a decade ago. Of course, there are other aspects to both of these hot rods that help define them, but the wheels really do make that first impression. So when it comes to personal preference, I'm always a fan of finding old, rare, and unique options as opposed to going with something new and off the shelf. I find immense satisfaction in using old parts with history and heritage and repurposing them for something of my own. So of course, one would probably deduce I've picked something special for the Ferrari. So let's talk about it. Early on in the build, we tried several different sets of wheels, all in an effort to get an idea of what might look best. We tried the TE37s first, and as you might expect, they looked good because they tend to on pretty much everything, but they're a bit too expected for my taste, so I wanted to go with something a bit different. The centerlock Renaults were an unexpected surprise. They looked great and gave the car a serious EB110 vibe, but they weren't what I was looking for. The centerlock BBSs were probably the best looking of the trio, but once again, these fell into the category of not quite being what I was after. I felt that they were too European in flavor, and I want something specifically Japanese. As a car with a Japanese engine, Japanese bodywork, and competing in a sport that hails from Japan, I want to nail that first impression, and I want the source of inspiration to be abundantly clear. I spent months deliberating what wheels I truly wanted to put on the Ferrari, and then months more tracking down the right set. Over a year ago, I sent these wheels out to have them cut apart, as they were originally a two-piece welded set. I had custom halves spun to step them up to 17 inches in diameter, and had them widened out to 12 inches wide in the rear. But this wasn't without a number of hiccups. If you've been watching this series, you know it was delay after delay after delay. But they're finally here, and I'm ready to show you. These are the wheels that I originally planned to put on the 308. I don't know what you expected, but you either love this or you are mortified. It's probably one of the most controversial choices for this car so far, but I've got to say that personally, I'm in love. They're Advan Onis, and they are quintessentially, unmistakably Japanese. And when it comes to the aspect of matching the era we discussed earlier, they are undeniably from the 80s. But I can hear it. Some of you guys are wondering, an entire year or more wait for this? I don't get it. Well, let's start by taking a look back at what we began with. These are the Advan Onis when I first purchased them, an extremely rare set of 5-lug 16-inch wheels. Now they do come in 17s, but the 17s are a reverse lip structure, a flat lip without a step, and having a stepped lip was important to me for aesthetic reasons. So I sourced a 16-inch set and then sent them out to be cut apart and have custom halves spun so that they'd have stepped lips, and so that they'd also meet the 17 by 10.5 and 17 by 12 dimensions. Now to be clear, they have not been refinished yet, and the intention was to paint the centers gloss white, whether the car was yellow or white like it is now. But nonetheless, it'll still be fun to see one bolted up, so let's get a rotiform removed and bolt this thing into place. One of the many reasons to convert the car from 5x108 to 5x114.3 was so that I could run cool old wheels just like these. And although they aren't refinished, nor are they painted white, man, they look incredible on here. It's a considerably different overall aesthetic versus the Rotiforms we already have on the car. And I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. However, this is where the problems begin. Although I sent the brake dimensions to the company doing the custom work and was told we shouldn't have any issues, we had to stack not one spacer, but a second ill-fitting universal spacer on the car just to clear the brakes. And on top of that, I had to take an angle grinder to my brand new wheels to cut down the ends of the bolts on the backside just to clear the calipers. I only cut a few away because this is not a permanent solution, but it'll at least let us test fit the wheels to see what else is needed to actually run them. As you can see, this isn't even really viable at the moment. The size of the nuts on the backside will still clip the caliper, and so realistically we'd have to run even more spacer than what's on the car now, which means spinning new halves so that they'd fit, and the whole thing starts to kind of fall apart.
So love them or hate them, I know most of you guys are at least curious what the full set looks like. What does it look like on the ground? What do the front wheels look like? Well, that's a good question, and I'd love to show you, except for I still don't have them. In fact, I've had the rear wheels since May, and I posted them up on the Patreon page saying I was under the impression I'd have the fronts within about a week, but it's been 6 months, and they're still not here. It's insane. They still can't go on the car. But even if they could, I found out once I got these that we're gonna have an even bigger problem with the fronts. So let's go to the front of the car, and I'm gonna show you.
Now, all of the problems we've encountered with the rear wheel are solvable. None of them would keep us from running the wheels if we want to. But the front, on the other hand, presents a completely different level of issue. As one might guess, the front brakes are even bigger than the rears. We had over an inch of spacer stacked on the back, but when it comes to the front, we have to stack not one spacer and not two spacers, but three, taking us nearly to 2 inches worth of spacer just to clear the caliper. They don't even make studs long enough for this application for this to be possible, which means cutting the studs down and running a custom bolt-on application to pull this off. Now, to be clear, spacers are totally fine and more than safe on the racetrack, but 2 inches worth? Nah, that's not a proper solution, and it's not how we're going to solve this. The problem is that these Advans have almost no back pad on the back of the center. There's no offset between the mounting surface of the wheel and the flange through which the halves bolt to the center itself. Aftermarket big brake kits weren't nearly as popular as they are today back when these wheels were new, which means this wasn't a problem at the time. But let's say we're willing to run some huge special spacer setup just to fit these wheels. We're not out of the woods yet because this would push the wheels far out, meaning there's a new issue. The wheels would have to run lips similar in size to those zero-lipped BBS RSs on my Model A. These are called drop lips, and they look good here as well as on other applications like the E28, but with a 5-inch lip in the back of the Ferrari, I really want something more in the front. Of course, in addition to running a spacer, I could just redesign the front suspension again to give us a lower overall track width, but that's counterintuitive and goes against everything we've aimed to accomplish, so I'm not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense. And then, yeah, of course, I could put a smaller brake package on the front of the car like we have in the rear, but that doesn't make any sense either, going backwards in performance just to run some wheels. So when I realized I was facing all of these hurdles back in May, that's when I called my friends over at Rotiform and told them about the problem. I also knew that if I didn't have some viable wheel solution in hand relatively soon, the project was going to be so far behind that it was never going to get done. So I called them up and told them what I needed. A set of wheels custom built for the car that fit not only the track width and the fenders, but also the custom brake specs, and this is what we wound up with. The Rotiform ROCH. Some of you guys are undoubtedly pleased that these wound up on the car versus the 3-spoke Advans, and the rest of you are wishing the Advans were what the car debuted on. And honestly, I find myself wavering back and forth between the two because they both look incredible. The wheels that are on the car today are the same gray ROCHs, I just had them powder-coated white once I knew the car was going to be white as well. I think they do a great job of paying tribute to the Ferrari F40 LM, and while some feel it's contrived, I think that the white-on-white theme of the car is right at home.
Now, to clarify, when I bought these wheels, I knew they didn't have much back pad on them, and I knew clearing these brakes was going to be a huge problem. It was going to be a challenge. I was planning on running a 20, maybe even a 25 millimeter spacer to clear the brakes, to make it clear the step in the barrel, and to clear the back of the hardware on the wheels that holds them together. The problem is I gave the brake CAD files to the company doing this work, and I was told that there shouldn't be any problems. Clearly, we do have a problem. And I still don't have those front wheels. I still don't have them. So, overall, this is just one huge disaster, and it's unfortunate. I'm not going to name and shame this company. That doesn't seem like the right thing to do. Accidents happen. Maybe there was some miscommunication on the brake clearance. As for not having the wheels, yeah, that still bums me out. But, you know, I just won't do business with them again. Now, we've been over how we could make it work, but honestly, my opinion at this point is it's juice that's not worth the squeeze. I'm not going to re-engineer all the suspension. I'm not going to put smaller brakes in the car just for these wheels, and I'm not going to run them with tiny lips and huge spacers because that doesn't make any sense. It won't look the way that I want it to. So I'm left with some of the coolest paperweights in the world. If anybody wants a super wide set of Advan Onis, holla at your boy. But otherwise, I think the answer from here is to build something of our own. I talked to the guys at Rotiform, I showed them pictures of the wheels, and I said, guys, look at this. This is how this car should be. But I don't want to just build a replica. I'm not into knockoff or fake wheels. I don't want to just copy the Oni. Instead, I think we should build a 3-spoke of our own design that pays tribute to the wheel, but has some touches of our own, something that is unique for the car, something that is derivative of the 3-spoke, without it just being a true carbon copy. There are some design elements to that Oni that could be better, such as I don't like the square lug pockets, and the overall shape of the spoke could be a little bit straighter for a little bit more of an even more vintage feel, I think. We're gonna see. That's the idea I'm gonna explore. I think it could be really cool. It's a wheel build for this car for the future, and I'll just kind of keep you guys in the loop as I continue kind of planning that out and exploring the idea. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe it won't ever happen, maybe it will. With all that said, I love the wheels that are on the car now. I think they came out perfect. And in a sense, I'm even more happy that these were on the car for the unveiling because it really just nails how the car looks in my head. I'm happy with it. I love it. So thank you again to the guys at Rotiform. With all that said, that's all I got for this episode. Don't forget, Black Friday sale. Everything is on sale. Everything that I've got left in stock. So go grab it. It's while it lasts. I'll probably sell out of everything because there's not a ton left. So anyways, thank you as always for the support. I'll catch you guys next week, hopefully on the dyno.